Hello everyone, welcome to this game of StarCraft that I found on reddit.com/r/castit. I am Thaco. We will see spawning here on this map of Bel'Shir Vestige as our red Protoss player. It is KyoJiN. And his opponent as our blue Terran player. In the upper left hand side, it will be Tom. Now this will be a PvT played out on Bel'Shir, and it looks like we're gonna open pretty standardly here. The pylon going down to the main and the probe moving out. Of course, that doesn't rule out any funkiness later, so we'll have to keep our eye on this probe. Should just be scouting though, as Tom is actually the one opening very standard. Just supply depot at the ramp, gonna go into barracks. It's gonna keep it very safe and conservative. And we will most likely see this move along the route towards a later game PvT, which does get so intricate as it comes down to just who can better position their expensive units, those ghosts versus those Templar, those Colossi versus the Vikings. I guess it would be more Vikings versus Colossi, because Colossi can't do anything about Vikings. And this is just a scouting probe. I was correct when I said that. He has just got waypoints set all over this base of Tom's. He will be able to see everything and never able to leave, actually, as that SCV builds part of the supply depot to make sure that that wall off is full and complete. As back home, KyoJiN is tossing down the assimilator, getting the gateway up, hiding it back up in the base a little bit, but that's more just a result of where he put his initial pylon as opposed to anything else. No matter what happens here, it will allow Tom will get there very quickly and see what's going on as the cybernetics core goes down. And we will very shortly see what exactly the opening tech paths of KyoJiN will be. Whereas Tom has finished up that barracks and has gotten a marine out, has a refinery on the way, which will lead to things like tech labs, and factories, but it does not itself a tech lab or a factory. And he is just now sending his own scout out across the map in the form of this SCV. He wants to see what is over on his opponent's side of the base, and he'll be able to do that easily because KyoJiN didn't see a whole lot of units out, so he knew he didn't need his own defensive units out. So he's going for his tech as opposed to just having a massive army in the early game. Getting out that warp gate, stocking up quite a few minerals. Is he going down here to expand? Yes, he is. Taking that Nexus will mean he actually has the lead in base count now, as there is no attempt from Tom yet to even start a command center. He's got his first 100 gas finishing soon. We'll see what he wants to go for there. He is getting 3 more. It's going to 3 barracks, tossing down a tech lab. We'll be getting Stimpact on the way once that is done. And we'll have a lot of Marines. 3 factories done this early in the game. He's going to be very mineral dependent. Just going right down with another tech lab and refinery, so he's going to be marauder heavy in this game most likely, as opposed to something like a big marine swell if he had gone for 2 refineries behind the 2 tech labs. But he is economically very far behind from KyoJiN, who has chosen to go for that second Nexus play. But Tom is going to go for a very aggressive build, which will hopefully for him make up for his lack of economy at this phase of the game, as he is actually chooses to go straight for concussive shells here. Wants his marauders to be as powerful as possible as he finishes up his second tech lab and is just going for marauders so far. He's not gotten another 100 gas, so we can't see him have a chance to go for either combat shield or stimpaks yet. And there Stimpack starts just as he peaks over 100 gas. So this will be... It's going to get ready to be very aggressive here. He's going to have to do a lot, because the longer this goes, the longer Protoss is allowed to have 2 functional bases to your 1 functional base, the farther behind Tom will become. And it looks like he's just moved out here to his natural's choke point, which is a great spot to defend if you have a natural, but without one, it's a little iffy. It might mean that he is hoping to be taking this soon, but with the unit production he's been doing and the mineral income he has, that's not as likely, as KyoJiN will be sending out a scout right now, and we'll actually see that his opponent's still on 1 base. See that his opponent has marauders, and that's it. Actually won't even get the scout up into here to see there's only 1 base. Sees the marauders down there on the low ground, so might think that there is in fact a second base up already, there is not. There is just mass Marine Marauder production happening. They have taken the center of the map, and they have taken it, well, very effectively. But they've got to get in there, and they've got to start doing damage. +1 weapon has been started for Tom, so he will have this really aggressive army that will be able to get a lot of damage done, because there is just not a whole lot for KyoJiN on the field at this point. Tom stands a chance to get a lot done right now as he's bringing this army across. There will be a photon overcharge. There is a big warp in of sentries. So now the question is, do you try to wall off and keep these units out, or do you wall them in, keep them in there with the photon overcharge? Get as much of the efficiency out of that as you can, but that nothing will come of that as Tom is able to pull his units back as he sees that photon overcharge go down. And around the time that that photon overcharge wears off, there actually will be the potential for a second photon overcharge not long after that. So KyoJiN stands to hold a good defense for quite a while now, as he is warping in as his gateways come off cooldown, which means that he is able to get a much larger army up. He's double upgrade researching right now. So the longer this goes, the further the advantage of KyoJiN will become, as he's mined off these two bases for longer. His upgrades will most often be much further ahead, even as the observer out. Two observers out, so he knows that the expansion is going down behind this. He knows that Tom is going to then make a play to stay in this game for a longer period of time, because his initial aggression has, I mean, it's not totally failed, but it's falling apart quickly. He's going to get a lot of damage done right here. The second photon overcharge does go down, walling units out. Tom just take out a decent number of zealots without losing too much of his own, so that was some good damage, but there was no economic damage done. He hasn't shut down KyoJiN at all yet, and KyoJiN has two really saturated bases. He has a lot of money, and it's getting everything much quicker than Tom can get it. So Tom needs to get stuff done as quickly as possible right now. He does have that +1 weapons finished, and he is starting up +1 armor, but very shortly +1 weapon and armor will be finished for KyoJiN, who is going for, well, for Immortals. Immortals will eat the shots off of those Marauders very well, but the Marines will tear through the Immortals, as their hardened shields do not protect them from those Marines. A big gateway swell coming in right now. KyoJiN is going to become very aggressive shortly, as he himself now trades out and gets ready for his phase of the game where he can be more commanding, as he starts also the Zealot Legs research, or the Zealot Charge, which will allow them to close the distance with this Marine Marauder very quickly and just shut it down, and even hopefully, if they can get a full surround off on it and hold it in place and let those back units do a lot of damage. There's the attack. There is no photon overcharge this time. Huge number of those Marines are caught stuck in there with the Zealots, but the Marauders are just doing huge amounts of damage. The Immortal is finally out, and the Immortal, just Immortal devastating these Marauders. The Immortal is exactly what he needed in this case. The Nexus is sniped, so that is good damage. He does check to see if there are any DTs. There are not. There is only an observer, my friend. And his army is, well, greatly reduced as the army of Tom, as I think a lot of his units did focus fire down the Nexus of KyoJiN, which meant that, well, he did do a good deal of economic damage, but it's a stall economic damage. It's not a shutdown of the economy. He's giving himself time to get back in this game, as he is able to saturate the space very quickly, because it doesn't look like his SCV production really ever totally slowed down. He's getting ready for a defense now, because he knows that my army was just shut down. I lost a lot there. He lost his whole army for that Nexus. So he's getting ready for the defense, because he knows that KyoJiN can become very aggressive. KyoJiN kind of knows that he can move it on the map. He does have that observer that has been flying around and has seen the army, but he doesn't, I don't think, has been up on the high ground recently, so doesn't know how aggressive he's allowed to be. And he's just going to sit back, reestablish his Nexus, and also get up this third Nexus down in the bottom left, staying one base ahead of his opponent the entire game, which has been just a real strength of his here. He's always had that big economic lead, which allows him to do these cost-inefficient trades. But there's the catch. His trades haven't been cost-inefficient. He's been incredibly cost-efficient this entire game, staying, well, I mean, he's retained about 900 more resources than his opponent, Tom, has. So their Nexus has finally been rebuilt, and he is resaturating it, mining at a much shorter distance now. S-Probe's doing crazy things there, as he is rallying some back down to his third there. That was like a crazy dance going there on the screen. As these medevacs, this is once again, Tom knows what he needs to be doing, and what he needs to be doing is doing damage around. But that beautiful observer placement from KyoJiN spots that drop. He knows it's coming. Comes down to how well does he split his army here. I think he only has feedbacks with these. So, and Tom is just rejected by that army of KyoJiN, which just so beautifully pushes away those medevacs. No damage taken on either side, but KyoJiN just keeps those sitting there. Tom keeps them sitting there. KyoJiN hasn't seen them retreat with this observer, so unless he thinks they may have taken an alternate route, he should know they are there, and he does leave some zealots. All right, army is swiftly dwindling that he is left behind to defend this. Now it's just 2 zealots and a stalker to defend this drop, where the rest of his army is up here at his natural, defending the main ramp. As well, Tom is starting to hold his own again in the economic game. He is getting a 3rd command center down, but he's already behind. There's not a whole lot he can do. Oh, there's the drop. The drop is in the base. He has sniped a pylon. Pylon was only powering the Twilight Council and a gateway, so research on Storm has not stopped yet. The drop was just in and out very quickly. I don't even think SCV or probes lost their lives. I mean, 3 probes have been killed this game, and there was a whole time period where our nexuses were dropping, so I don't think that drop did any damage. I don't think he took any damage. There's another double drop moving out down to the bottom left. Has he scouted that? No, he has not scouted the 3rd yet, but he will be sending this army down towards that 3rd, potentially just now finding out it exists. Another one going back into the main. This looks like an angle that, yeah, he's just finding out this base exists right now. He didn't even assume it was there. He would think he was going down this angle here to cut off into the natural, but now he knows that that's there. An entire army is pulled out to deal with it as he drops back down into the main as well. A lot of damage being done here to the economy of KyoJiN, as it looks like once again he's just, well, there's enough zealots left up here in the main base that they are able to quickly deal with this drop. I think pylons are going to fall down there, and our drop is dealt with completely down here in the natural. A couple SCVs or probes were lost down there, but once again dealt with almost perfectly. A single marauder and 2 medevacs were able to retain their lives after those drops. KyoJiN split that very well, bringing the majority of his army down to the 3rd to take care of that base, and just warping in zealots at his main, because he has a lot of gateways up at this time. He has 6 warp gates in production at this time, and those zealots are +2/+2 with +3/+3 finishing shortly against 1/1 Marines. Well, about to be 2/1 Marines, but in the same time period. And there's that command center flying down to the 3rd. So Tom is going to, again, tie the base count, but will be very far behind in the economy. So KyoJiN should be looking to make his move very shortly because of the fact that he's going to start mining low in both his main and his natural. But he's prepared for that. He's taken a 4th, which will once again put him above the base count. His economy is just been wonderful this whole game, and even now, like, still just retaining resources better. He just has the units to play this game where Tom is just trying to get everything together he can. He's trying to get something done. Those drops were a great idea. That initial push was a great idea, but time and time again, KyoJiN has just pushed Tom back ever so gently. These aren't huge losses that KyoJiN is suffering in any of these fights. It's just like, no, we're not going to lose anything quite yet. And Tom is going for the cute little play right now, just spreading Widow Mines out all over the map, hoping, okay, 2 other things I just looked at were SCVs, I'll admit. He's just hoping that he'll be able to get it, but that one is spotted by these zealots in this warp prism. He's hacking and slashing, trying to bring it down, and he is able to. So, all right, he also does know about the warp prism now, though. But what is he going to be able to do to defend against it? He's going to send out a doom drop. That is what he's going to do. This is 5 fully loaded medevacs. This is not his whole army. His rest of his army is moving down to his 3rd, where he did see this warp prism flying. This will find this brand new base, but unfortunately, it will also find the army. But he knows about the army being there. What's he going to do? Feedbacks bring down 1, 2. Oh, man. 3 medevacs lost, completely full of units. Amazing feedbacks from the army of KyoJiN there. Unfortunately, he did stand right on top of those Widow Mine as it fired again, but it only got 1 kill. That nerf to the Widow Mine that it does radiating damage now did help quite a bit. But, oh man, those feedbacks were absolutely devastating to these medevacs. Just what could have been a very hard to deal with drop for KyoJiN was just dealt with perfectly. Like I said, like, it's been the name of the game. He's just gently pushing these drops back, not fighting in major engagements. Just like, your aggression, no, we'll deal with that later. I want to get my perfect army up and running. But what is perfect army is moving way out of position. It's going way down here to this side. That just take out shields on the zealots? Yeah, it looks like it did. His perfect army is going to be way out of position as the army of Tom does storm down into this left-hand base. KyoJiN trying to bring his army back as quickly as possible, and, you know, with this little choke point, Zealots are going to be able to charge in. It looks like there are going to be storms from the high ground hitting the majority of the flank of that right side army. The base does fall. Feedback's trying to bring down the medevacs. Zealots coming in from the backside, surrounding this army. It looks like these are beautiful positions for storms, but the High Templar just moving in right in there. But now the storms hit. Giant storms decimating that army. That army can't leave. And KyoJiN still sits perfectly right up around 200 supply to 77. Now 82 of Tom as that Warp Prism drops, forcing all of the SCVs off of that third base. There are Marines and Marauders here to deal with this. Looks like they will be able to deal with it easily. But then behind that, KyoJiN just brings the majority of his army and just pushes right up into the third. He doesn't have time for a little QT drop plays around the back anymore. He's just going right in to get the kill as he takes out all of the Zealots, just going to town on the worker line. The command center is lifted to try to make its great escape. Archon's going for it, but Zealot Archon, not the world's largest amount of anti-air, as those Archons are trying to do what they can, but the entire base is just ransacked at this point. So it looks like he's not gonna just charge the ramp quite yet. It looks like he wants to make sure there's nothing left on the low ground. Storming, what does that, like 3 Marauders he stormed? I think it probably did more damage. And there's the GG well played out of Tom as he concedes defeat. And very gracious play on both sides there as both players giving each other the GG. I was just going to make fun of that storm on those 3 Marauders real quick, though. That happened right over here, because I'm pretty sure it did more damage to the Zealots than the Marauders, but it doesn't matter. It was a very well-played game by KyoJiN. He perfectly held off everything that Tom threw at him, and Tom had a lot of aggression that game. So once again, congratulations on a wonderfully played game.